pretty much the end of our time. But before we do, I want to make just sure that a lot of you, anyway, have time, some quick final thoughts about the year. And I want to start with you, Dr. Butts, if you wanted to say something.
I think it's important to hear the children when they speak about peace, negotiation, and talk in order to resolve problems. And I think that we would be wise to hear these children as they speak to us in this way. Yes, even about Osama bin Laden, whom we can't find, and about a crazy war that threatens to take more of their lives. Because if this war continues, remember, it's these children, not us old folk, who will have to fight.
It is certainly our rule here to listen to the children. Margot.
I think that September 11th really showed us what our nation stands for, and that how strong we really are, and that when the time comes, we really can pull together as one.
Thomas.
I think that the terrorists could have taken away our Twin Towers and the lives of many thousands of people, but they can never take away the pride of being an American.
That's very thoughtful. Annie.
I think that in some ways September 11th might have been good because it showed the worst in people, but it also showed some of the best.
That's very interesting. Okay.
And just that the terrorists were trying to separate us, but it's really brought us more together.
Well, I have a feeling by the number of hands that we could go on, and maybe we should go on by ourselves for quite some time, but that's as much time as they're going to give us today, and I thank you. I thank all of you adults for coming and being so patient with us. But once again, mostly I thank you. I thank you all for helping us to understand more than we did before we met you. Thank you.
This woman is in hiding because of the story she has to tell about Saddam Hussein. Thursday, Saddam's Secrets, and the woman who says she was his secret mistress on prime time.
He never saved another's life. He never ruled a nation. He never led men in desperate battle. And yet his whole life is a story of heroism. And his victory will thrill your heart. Christopher Reeve, Courageous Steps, next Wednesday at 10/9 Central on ABC.
In just about every generation, we seem to learn that there are people who despise our liberty and our freedoms and who lash out against us for those things. And we learn to overcome that, and we pull together in ways we have never pulled together before.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lee Jordan. A number of local ceremonies today commemorating the one-year anniversary of the worst terrorist attacks in American history. Many sought comfort and solace downtown inside St. John's Cathedral. More than 100 members of the Cleveland Orchestra and Chorus performed the haunting Requiem by Mozart. That will reverberate in other churches across the country today. Inside, it was standing room only as a packed church reflected on the day the world changed. Local firefighters paused to remember the New York firefighters killed in the World Trade Center attacks. In Brooklyn, firefighters have a strong connection. 9 of them were at Ground Zero helping last September. Today, about 100 people took part in a mourning ceremony to honor those who lost their lives last year. Make sure to stay tuned to News Channel 5 for Live on 5 and News Channel 5 at 6. Ted Henry will be live in New York City, Adam Shapiro in Shanksville. And log on to newsnet5.com where you can light an interactive candle.
Since then, there are moments and times when you start to feel like it's the same, and you call and check yourself on it and realize what's most important, and you realize that the memories of that day are close enough and strong enough that they're still impacting the way we do business and the way we live our lives.
We continue our coverage of the first anniversary of the attacks on the country, 9/11. That is Ground Zero in New York. As I think we all now know, this is the Circle of Honor in the middle at the foot of the ramp. And just a short while ago, President Bush, who has been at the Pentagon today and at Shanksville, Pennsylvania, landed here down at the bottom of Wall Street. And he is now going to join many of the families and friends and the dignitaries at Ground Zero to pay his personal respects to the people who died here. You will recall that the president came to New York almost immediately after the disaster of 9/11, and gave a huge boost to the city's spirit, as had, of course, the mayor, Rudolph Giuliani, who has been evident today, which reminds me that Claire Shipman in Washington has been with us all day, watching the president come and go here and there. Claire, how do you think he's been affected by this day? And I realize that's asking you to be a bit of a mind reader.
Well, I think you can read it on his face to some extent, Peter. It's incredibly serious. He and Mrs. Bush, I think, have both been at times visibly moved, especially greeting the families of the victims in Pennsylvania. Those moments, advisors say, are always very emotional for him. And I think he's a man who has gone through so many changes in the flesh. I mean, you see it in his hair. His hair is grayer. And I think you also see it in the way for a while, his moral clarity, which is a natural state for the president, seemed to line up with the world's moral clarity. But I think what will be interesting to watch is the world has moved on to some extent. It's a murkier place again. The decision about going to war in Iraq is a very difficult one, and it will be interesting to see how the president adapts to that change.
It is certainly true that the president sees the world in very clear, distinct terms in this regard. Washington changed so much a year ago. What effect do you think this day might have on official Washington, if any?
Well, I think it will remind everybody in official Washington of a brief moment where there was so much less focus on the truly trivial in terms of partisan politics here. And it went on for a couple of months. And to some extent, partisan politics, Peter, have returned here. But one thing is interesting. The partisan politics that exist now are about more substantive issues. They're about the war in Iraq. They're about budget issues. You don't see the sort of personal animosity that you felt before last September 11th. And I think that this year will be another reminder that people like the change.
George Stephanopoulos is also with us, watching from his post in Washington. We're just simply waiting for the president to show up at Ground Zero, a short motorcade from the Wall Street heliport. George, I'm one of those in favor of partisan politics because that's what makes democracy go round. Do you think we'll see more of it in the year ahead?
Well, we started to see a lot over the course of the last year, Peter, coming as we entered actually into 2002. And yes, I think I do. Look at the difference yesterday. The administration went up to Capitol Hill to brief, to give evidence they have about Saddam Hussein's efforts to build weapons of mass destruction, to build nuclear weapons. And the difference between the Republican and Democratic senators coming out of the briefing was very, very stark. The Republicans basically said that they've now seen the evidence they think they need to see. They want to hear the president's speech, but they're basically on the road towards approving the course that the president was going to take. Democratic senators like Richard Durbin of Illinois and others came out and said, I didn't see anything new. I have to be convinced. So yes, I do think you're going to see more partisan disagreement. You also hear from some Democrats, Peter, in the last few days, some skepticism about the timing of this talk about now action against Iraq, suggesting that perhaps it's a little bit too close to Election Day. Why now? Why are we seeing this push now?
George, this is a hugely popular president still, as we've said several times today, and was, when we think back a year ago, I think almost by universal agreement, the absolutely appropriate person to lead the nation at this moment of huge and enormous stress. But I sense a reluctance, certainly in the Democratic Party and in some wings of the Republican Party, to take the president on in foreign policy. Are they just intimidated by his popularity?
I think that's part of it, Peter. I think the second part of that is that they just don't want this debate to be about foreign policy, national security policy. That's traditionally the Republican strength. The Democrats would much more want the election debate to be about corporate irresponsibility and the economic insecurity. But you're right about the president's popularity. He's had the longest sustained high approval ratings of any president since polls have been taken. And that's been a big, big cushion for the president over the last year.
Thanks very much, George. And Claire in Washington. The president now arriving in New York, as I said, when he came that time and got up, you'll recall, with the firemen, grabbed the bullhorn and talked to all of the people. It was like an injection of enthusiasm and energy into people who were deeply and profoundly stressed here. And this city particularly got a lot of it from Rudolph Giuliani. And you can't be in New York without being sensitive to the fact that this is a more continuingly big part of life than it has been in other parts of the country. You listen to reporting in other parts of the country these days, and people are indeed more interested in prescription drugs, taxes, state of the economy. We've tried to cover most of them today, although we haven't done prescription drugs. As the President arrives, I want to introduce two other people here with me in New York. Trey Moran, who's our White House correspondent, and Nikki Stern, whose husband, James Patorti, died in the World Trade Center a year ago today, and Nikki has very kindly given of her time. She's become a very significant spokesperson on behalf of the victims' families. Do you just hate that phrase, victims' families?
I'm not sure what else we can say,
Yeah.
but it's getting a little tiring. Survivors.
Survivors. I'm very interested to hear that your diary, or portions of your diary, are in that Smithsonian exhibition.
Yes.
Can you share some of what you wrote in it?
I have the first paragraph memorized because it was a little shocking, because I was not in New York that day. I normally would be on a Tuesday. And I was in a supermarket, and the clerk ran down the aisle yelling, "The World Trade Center's been hit by a plane." And I was holding a carton of eggs and remember thinking to drop the eggs would be too melodramatic. So I walked very slowly to the checkout counter, paid for the eggs, and walked out the door, and then ran to the car. I went crazy and went home. I turned on the television and tried to count the floors from the bottom from the top, and then saw the second plane hit the second tower.
As I said, you've become very involved in survivors' rights. How do you think, it's a government issue as much as anything else, how do you think governments, New York City, New Jersey, New York, the federal government, how do you think they're doing for you all?
I think it's better. I think that there is endemic to governments and private organizations layers of bureaucracy that tend to get in the way of sincere outreach. And for people in trauma, it's very exacerbating to have to deal with paperwork and forms and multiple death certificates. That's been kind of a challenge for everyone.
As you know, I was talking to the master of the Victim Compensation Fund earlier today. Somebody told me you had not been entirely happy with his approach.
Oh, I don't know who told you that. I think that he's become more sensitized to the families. But I think initially there was some real contention because he had some. It was a delivery style as much as anything. It rubbed some families the wrong way.
All of us, who do this as reporters and editors and stuff, we do today and cover the last thing. We very often feel like voyeurs. What has today meant to you and the other survivors that you're aware of? Has this been a good day? Has this been an important day?
That's an excellent question. I sometimes think that the voyeurs, or what we call the outsiders, frankly, might think that this is a door through which you walk on September 11th, and that on the 12th, everything is clear. You have closure. And of course, we have so many people not identified or only slightly identified and not much collected. And you have the mental health issues, some of which the children talked about going forward. And you have people that are still numb. It's kind of an ongoing process. You have big picture issues that are potentially positive, but that we haven't, as a country, really talked about yet.
And of course, we all have to appreciate and be aware that you can't generalize. I mean, many survivors didn't attend the ceremonies today. And a lot of people said the last thing in the world they want to do is watch television. They go to the woods instead.
Yeah.
It's just too hard for some survivors to be in public.
Absolutely. I'm bringing 17 widows and mothers to Ground Zero next week from New Jersey because they just couldn't come today. But they need to go. But they couldn't come with all of the ceremony and they couldn't mark this day that way.
Do you know anybody who hasn't been to Ground Zero?
Yes.
Really, never?
Yes. Probably half of the people that I'm bringing next week.
Have not been at all. I don't mean just
all.
on the anniversary. Have not been at all.
At all.
Because other families felt it was so important to be there because they regarded this as hallowed ground. It was only going to a cemetery.
The people you hear from are the people who are able to voice their opinions and get up and go out. And there are a huge number of people that don't fall into that category.
You were one of the people who was reading some of the names today. It took about, if I recall, about 45 minutes to an hour longer than we'd anticipated.
Well, not longer than I anticipated, but yeah, it was long. It was a long day.
And of the names you read, did you know?
Yes, I knew two of the people. And I actually emailed their, in one case, a wife, and then a widow, in the other case, parents, and said, I'm reading their names.
It's fair, I think, to describe you as we wait for the president to come here to Ground Zero, it's fair, I think, to describe you as an activist. I mean that in the best sense. Activist. People are getting through this in so many different ways. Some, I assume, in absolute privacy. Others of you by being very active.
Well, for me, I had no children. And Jim really was, for better or for worse, my whole life.
You were married for 13 years, right?
11, but I knew him for 13. And I had to do something. I felt very isolated. I live in Princeton, New Jersey, although I work in New York. And I found I was able to get information. And then I found there were people that needed it. And then I found that there was a reason for me to get up in the morning, which is to get the information to the people that needed it. And I guess that's how I became an activist. And I worked for architects, and so there was something I could do in terms of contributing to the future of Ground Zero.
Are you generally pleased, if not with the, because we haven't ever kind of got close to final designs for memorials or rebuilding the place, but do you think the public generally, the government, the public, everybody's involved, is doing it in a kind and responsible way?
I think they've been very considerate of the families. I'm aware, as an advocate, if you will, that there are other stakeholders involved, and I have early on been interested in hearing their opinion. It's difficult for the families, and I see myself as a translator, and we need to hear from other people.
It's sometimes said that the families have inordinate power, and I don't mean too much, but I mean unusual power in almost every instance.
Well, I think it's also important to realize, at least when you're talking about Ground Zero, that the families themselves have differences. And there are many of us that realize and that feel a responsibility to come to a consensus with the other stakeholders. I know that that my husband was a great lover of life and was very aware of the residents and the small businesses and other things going on down there that need to be accommodated.
As I said, we're waiting for the president. Can I just ask you one last question?
Sure.
Term and I are just sitting here fascinated. People like us ask you all the time, tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Do you mind?
No. I fell in love with Jim and he with me. And I saw him at a party and it was love at first sight. But I had to borrow an apartment in Paris to get him to fall in love with me because he was kind of a reluctant bridegroom. So I was a cabaret singer in my other life, and I had a friend who was a cabaret owner who owned an apartment in Montmartre, of all the romantic places to go. And I borrowed it, and I invited Jim. I got a rent rebate that summer, and off we went to Paris. I mean, it was just a love story.
Well, we're very grateful to you for giving us the time.
Thank you.
Sharing some of yourself. It's not easy. It's not easy to listen to you.
Sorry.
We're expecting President Bush momentarily to do something official. We know he is here. Terry Moran, I apologize for ignoring you, but we want to tell our stations along the line that we know that some of you on the East Coast may leave us for local news. We will continue. Thank you for joining us up until now. I'm Peter Jennings. Our coverage of this anniversary continues, and we're very grateful to Nikki Stern, whose husband died at the World Trade Center, for coming and talking to us for a while. Her diary, or excerpts from her diary at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History in Washington. If you were not with us earlier, there's a very moving exhibition at the Smithsonian, and Michelle Norris, our correspondent, told us today that it's the largest attendance they've ever had at an opening, and it seems to make sense today. The President and Mrs. Bush down the ramp into the pit towards the Circle of Honor. As you can see, the ramp, and that's just exactly what it is flanked. President and Mrs. Bush's walk can't be an easy walk to make, flanked by members of all of the services and organizations, city, state, federal, who have worked here for the last year. And we recognize that we've lingered on this site longer today than we have in in a year, and it looks so extraordinarily different to people. It has gone through so many phases. Somebody, I've forgotten whom, is keeping a moment-by-moment pictorial record and will also keep one of the rebuilding of whatever it is here. We're talking about 16 acres of land. A year ago, we had no idea whether or not the magnitude of it was, you could capture it on television, and those of us who went to visit it shortly after realized, of course, you couldn't. It's a long walk for President and Mrs. Bush. Terry Moran, our White House correspondent. Thoughts?
Listening to Nikki Stern, imagine being president and having 3,000 of those stories weigh on your responsibilities. We know from Mr. Bush's own comments that he feels naturally an obligation to the loss. He carries with him, and it's in the Oval Office all the time, the badge of George Howard, the Port Authority police officer whose mother gave it to Mr. Bush, and it's a serious totem for him as he carries out his duties.
And I think you're the one who said earlier, I think you said it before, transformed his presidency. Finally, a moment of noise down there.
People ask a lot, how has it changed him? He's a lot more powerful.
Just catch a glimpse of that presidential plaque. It has the presidential seal in it. And on the plaque it says, every life taken here, every act of valor performed here, the nation holds an honored memory. And for the third time today, the President and Mrs. Bush spend time with the families. I want us to read you something, which I read in a magazine this week, preparing for this. If I can find it, it basically says that we knew about the president before September 11th, and we know it after. And this particular columnist argues that George Bush hasn't been fundamentally changed as president. Let me read you what the columnist says and see if you agree or disagree as you see him up close more regularly than most of us. Most of what he has done well, the columnist says, and done poorly over the years, could have been predicted before the Twin Towers fell. The difference is that now his strengths and his weaknesses both matter more. As written by a man named Peter Beinart in the
employer. That would be true of any president, but particularly with this president, whose edges in some ways are so sharp. He's a Texan, and he prides himself on that, and he likes to speak as plainly and directly as possible, and fancies himself a straight shooter. So people have made the point, as Claire did, that he sees the world in black and white. He has a profound and based in his Christian faith view of the world, a moral view of the world. The other thing he has, and
when you said this several times, now forgive me for interrupting, this moral view the president has of the world, I think you mean to say the president sees the world in terms of good and evil.
He sure does.
Them and us.
Absolutely.
Him and me.
And is unembarrassed about that at all. Remember when he first uttered the words axis of evil, there was a great hue and cry. There he is.
Sorry, just continue talking.
But that's who he is. The other thing that has come through is he has what you might call a child's patriotism, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. From the first day covering him, it was clear to me that things like flags and marching bands and immigrants' tales of success, he always got choked up at those things. And that, too, played to the moment, and I think helped him connect with an America that was rediscovering those things in large part.
Which is not automatically associated with a political ideology in the country at all, but is, for example, perhaps, well, that's not, it's like Ronald Reagan to some extent, it's like Bill Clinton to some extent in terms of human emotion.
It is. He is a people person, and you can see here this is one of the things he does best. It's often said he's not a great communicator. He certainly isn't a mellifluous speaker, but he is a people person that communicates in body language and with winks and hand clasps and such.
And nicknames.
And nicknames. Enthusiasm for people that people frankly respond to.
There are people in the country, make no mistake about it, who think that he and his administration are leading the country down the wrong road in many respects, having to do in both foreign and in domestic policy, and this is not, it seems to be the moment to have a policy debate. But you see here and we've seen it in American history since George Washington, and particularly George Washington, the power of the single man at the top of the totem pole. And I can't look at these pictures of the president working in a crowd, I mean that again in the best sense, without thinking of him on a rope line during his campaign for president. I said earlier today, he has a light touch. Without thinking of Ronald Reagan comforting the astronauts' families in Houston after Challenger, and without, Bill Clinton was also a master at this, comforting the people in Oklahoma City. Mrs. Bush, I think Claire said to me today, Claire Shipman, that she thought Mrs. Bush was a little less comfortable with this.
Well, as we have been watching today all across the country, solemn ceremonies mark the end of a tumultuous year that began on September 11, 2001. Joe Paganakis and I will have local coverage of 9/11 1 year later coming up. But first, as you see, News Channel 5 anchor Ted Henry has been in New York City all day, a day that began, Ted, with very solemn, emotional ceremonies there at Ground Zero, and as we have just seen, now with the president's visit.
Yeah, he was delayed just about a half an hour because of circumstances that we knew about earlier in the day, Lee. Do you hear me? I understand we're having problems with our audio right now, Lee. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to continue then. We're having winds buffeting us up to 50 miles an hour, so excuse us for our occasional technical problems because of the strong winds that have been plaguing this site all day. Certainly, nonetheless, one of the most significant days and somber days of my life, just to be a witness to the 1 year anniversary of September 11, 2001. The moment of silence jolted everybody because it was so profound. Everything stopped. Everybody completely silent from approximately 8:46 this morning until 8:50. It is a day of remembrance. Certainly, it is also a day of tears. It was well before the break of dawn today that photojournalist Rich Geiser and I began our walk past Ground Zero to our television office across the street. The streets, unusually calm and quiet for New York City. A year ago this morning, this was a city of comparative innocence. But that was soon about to change. Only on this one day, exactly 1 year later, would we choose to replay this horrifying video. Fitting, I believe, for this one moment, so that we may never forget. And so that others won't forget, profiles read aloud here at Ground Zero of all those who lost their lives here.
This is Diaz Sierra, 32, worked one row away from her best friend on the 90th floor of 2 World Trade Center. A co-worker told Mr. Sierra the two were together and he last saw them on the day of the attacks as they held the door open for him.
And then, at precisely 8:46 this morning, the very instant the first plane crashed into the North Tower, everything and everyone here stood silent. A quiet moment's reflection to recall what is called the grossest moment on American soil. And following the silent tribute, no speeches, not even one. Just elected leaders reading from some of America's other historic moments.
7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation.
And on the streets near the site of the towers, a young art dealer who was here last year and saw it all.
I went up on my roof, my apartment roof, and I saw everything, second plane. I saw the second plane coming and hitting the second building.
Today, I want to point out that at the exact moment of silence this morning, it was completely quiet except for what sounded like the low sound of a plane rumbling overhead. Many of us looked to the skies. We saw nothing. Truly, it was a phantom plane, if anything at all. It's still quite windy here. We're going to be following the president as he continues with his agenda with a speech coming up later tonight from Ellis Island. Lee, back to you.
All right, Ted, we'll see you later in this newscast. Thank you. Well, it took days after the terrorist attacks for U.S. air travel to resume, and 1 year later, the airlines are still feeling the impact. Especially today, air travel is down significantly.
News Channel 5's Corinne Winter is live at Hopkins International Airport. Of course, a much different scene today than it was 1 year ago. Corinne?
It sure is, Joe. In fact, it's business not as usual here at Cleveland Hopkins Airport. We're out with our cameras, and one passenger even commented, there's not much to shoot. There's nobody here. Indeed, the case locally here at Hopkins. We also checked with other hub airports. Travel is down 30% compared to the typical Wednesday schedule. Now, the mood here, quiet but not solemn, according to an airport spokesperson. No problem, we're told. Security-wise, the flights in and out did pick up ever so slightly this afternoon. Those traveling today say they couldn't have asked for a better outcome compared to a year ago.
We've been watching it all day, but I had the choice as to whether I want to travel today or tomorrow, and I'd rather travel on an empty plane. Nobody else is traveling, relax on my way home, than wait until tomorrow. And it's just as dangerous any other day as it is today, so just another day.
Actually, we're at the highest security level that exists here at Hopkins Airport. We've been that way since September 11th of last year. We have additional people on staff, and we've taken every security precaution that's needed in case of any potential problem.
Now, there is one security breach to tell you about, not here, but in Houston. An American Airlines flight leaving Houston had to be escorted back with F-16 fighter jets. Turned out to be nothing, but still, the airport officials wanted to remain vigilant just to sign up the times. Lee, Joe?
All right, Corinne, thanks a lot. Well, most of us have only seen the debris from the World Trade Center and Pentagon through television images. Today, though, in Eastlake, a special memorial built with steel from the World Trade Center was unveiled. These are actual pieces from New York. Now, News Channel 5's Angie Lau is currently in Eastlake with a look at the statue and other memorial services honoring victims of 9/11. Angie?
Well, Joe, here in Eastlake are the physical symbols of 9/11, the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and in Shanksville. And behind me, you can see dozens of family. They've just been gathering here all afternoon in their own way, commemorating 9/11, and each in our own different ways. We pay honor and tribute to those who are not here to remember.
The Mozart Requiem echoes throughout St. John in downtown Cleveland and in cathedrals across the country. It was as if the music spoke what more than 1,000 parishioners felt in their hearts.
Help us, O God, to stitch the human family back together in love and peace.
The church bells toll exactly 1 year to the minute America came under attack. For the human family in Cleveland, this day, 9/11, started with remembrance and tributes by all, Catholics, Buddhists, Jews, and Muslims.
So wherever we worship, and we worship the one Creator, the one God,
That means that we are one people. Instead of us fighting, we should be talking, consulting.
But others commemorated this day in their own way. Bev Gans gives blood.
I think 9/11 made us all aware that it could happen to any one of us anytime.
An office closes down and its staff comes to the food bank to volunteer.
Well, we felt we couldn't ignore it today. It wasn't business as usual today. And we felt that we wanted to do something together as a team.
At Public Square, they gathered to celebrate America's resilience. And then there was this man's lone expression of America's defiance against terrorism.
We go on. We live.
And it is that flag that remains as strong as ever for the people here and for Americans across the country. It is each one of these flags are flying at half-staff to remember those who are not here. Back to you.
Certainly a fitting memorial. Thanks, Angie.
A CNN poll looked at the preparedness of the country's 30 largest cities and their ability to respond to potential disasters and terrorist attacks. The cities were judged overall as being most prepared, well prepared, prepared, or less prepared. New York rated most prepared, Chicago prepared, Columbus well prepared, and Cleveland prepared. Live on 5 investigator Jody Brooks looks at what's been done in Cleveland in response to terrorism since September 11th. Jody.
The city of Cleveland has actively taken steps to ensure our safety. Some of the information is very detailed, some too sensitive, but certainly changes have been made. Okay, we're going to get to that story in just a second. We want to let you know that is the city prepared for a nuclear blast? The answer is no. Is the city prepared for the release of a chemical agent? It appears yes. But the biggest benefit in the changes here in the city of Cleveland is the cooperation among the responding agencies. They tell me that the turf battles are now gone. The walls between these agencies are now down. Lee, this is now a community that is working together.
Jody, this is an important story, and we will sure try to get back to this in a few minutes. Thanks very much. A 2,000-pound bell tolled 40 times this morning in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, to honor the victims who died on United Flight 93. Let's go to News Channel 5's Adam Shapiro with the memorial service honoring the passengers and crew who are being hailed as heroes there. Adam, definitely a mixture of profound grief and pride today there.
I think the two pain, the personal pain of the family members who were here, as well as patriotism. When President Bush was here, it was really quite amazing. Let's go back to the memorial service. This was a lot of people to tears.
Lorraine G. Bay.
The names of the people who died aboard United Flight 93 rang across the Pennsylvania countryside, a roll call of honor.
Richard Guadagno.
The relatives of the 40 passengers and crew who fought the hijackers for control of the plane, their loved ones gathered here on what they now call sacred ground.
What does not destroy us shall make us stronger. They have not destroyed us, and yes, we are stronger. Compassion, kindness, and concern can be found everywhere in America.
Sandy Dial lost her husband, Jason Dial, a pilot aboard Flight 93. She says the legacy of her husband and the sacrifice the other 39 people offered that day gives hope for the future.
Americans will always rise to the challenge. Americans will always fight for freedom. And Americans will never surrender our way of life.
President Bush and First Lady Laura Bush joined the families at the crash site today, where they placed a wreath. For many people, this field is the site of America's first stand against terrorism.
In a field in rural Pennsylvania, right prevailed over wrong, and hope was born again.
And there was one comment that the relatives here wanted everyone to know. They say that adversity does not breed character. Adversity reveals character. That's the story from Shanksville. Back to you, Lee.
It's very well said. Adam Shapiro in Shanksville, thank you. 184 people died when American Flight 77 slammed into the Pentagon. The newly rebuilt section of the Military Nerve Center served as the backdrop for a special memorial service. Let's go to the Pentagon, where Mary Beth Marsden has the story.
The terrorists wanted September 11th to be a day when innocents died. Instead, it was a day when heroes were born.
As Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld spoke those words, flags could have taken flight. It is a day to wave, remember those who died, and at the Pentagon, marvel at how America's symbol of military might could take such a crushing blow, then become such a symbol of resilience only 1 year later.
And for all who knew loss here, life is not the same. The 184 whose lives were taken in this place left behind family and friends whose loss cannot be waived.
And those families and friends watched as children recited the pledge, and the flag draped over the Pentagon after the attack was unfurled once again. Joe Mickley met his wife Patty at the Pentagon, and he lost her here.
It was hard driving up in the bus today and looking at the Pentagon. My cousin Pete and I were down here that night trying to get Patty out, but that was a futile effort.
Chris Davis lost his mother.
We will never forget her. So that's why I know that there are other people out there who will never forget their loved ones, and we as a nation can never forget any of these people.
The terrorists wanted September 11th to be a day when hatred reigned. Instead, it was a day when we witnessed love beyond measure.
And so for many at the Pentagon, comfort in the arms of patriotism and hope.
It's Mary Beth Marsden at the Pentagon. The forgotten victims of 9/11, Arab Americans remember the tragedies 1 year later.
And the city of Akron pays tribute to the fallen heroes of the attacks as our coverage of 9/11 1 year later continues.
I think 9/11 showed us that cowards take responsibility for tearing down buildings. Champions take responsibility for building communities. It also showed us that twisted religion is a sickness, but faith is a cure.
Theology 101, the difference between common grace and saving grace. Common grace is God's sunshine. The rain falls on the just and the unjust, it says in the Bible, meaning God has given this to all of us. But saving grace is personal. It's the effective way God changes our hearts and our eternity. And there we respond, we decide about Jesus Christ. To be sure of that. I'm Newt Larson from the Chapel.
Never clean your gutters again. Keeping your gutters clean is time-consuming and can be costly and dangerous. That's why Gutter Helmet was created. Its unique multi-patent design relies on surface tension, the same property that makes water cling when it spills down the side of a glass. Its exclusive nose-forward design keeps water flowing into gutters while leaves and debris fall away. Get off the ladder and out of the gutters and let Gutter Helmet help prevent major home damage. Call J.D. Terza and Associates. 25% off installation of 50 feet or more of Gutter Helmet. Limited time offer.
If you can visualize a family tree, put her in a grand, stable trunk. They share some of the same chronic illnesses, and we work through managing those chronic illnesses. Then the rest of the extended family kicks in to help to take care of both of them. Many generations are all depending on these older people for the wisdom that makes their family work.
Sometimes the key to a person's health is their medical history. Sometimes it's just plain old history. Metro Health, how people should be treated.
Tears rolled down the cheeks of a flight attendant this morning, many others as well, during a moment of silence at Hopkins International Airport. Passengers, flight attendants, and pilots got together and held a brief memorial exactly 1 year after the first plane crashed into the World Trade Center. After September 11th, local Arab Americans believed they would become targets here.
Ted Hart looks back with a couple of local Muslims on some of the bad and some of the good.
I was scared. I really was. I was afraid to leave my house.
Like most Americans, Suna Aziz still shudders when she thinks back to September 11th. But as an Arab American, Suna knew there would be a widespread cloud of suspicion against friends and family, and she worried about acts of violence. A few days later, her mosque was targeted when a man plowed his car into the front of the building. And now, a year later, Arab Americans say they still feel as though they're being watched.
A lot of times we're subject to, becoming more suspect, for example. We're subject to a lot more scrutiny by, the police officers and, authority people and stuff like that. And we kind of resent that.
Fred Hamed says Arab Americans now have to be even more careful about what they say and try even harder not to stand out.
I don't see this overt kind of racism. If there is, I'm not seeing it. But at some instances, especially with people who dress the traditional way, there has been some incidents.
It was on the day her mosque was attacked that Suna Aziz decided it was time to leave the house again. She went to the mosque and answered phones for 8 hours. Calls from all kinds of Clevelanders offering help. She says the experience changed her life.
I couldn't keep up with all the calls that were coming in. It was just such a wonderful experience. Something that most people don't realize that is really happening. And I swear from that day I would never be afraid to leave again. Never, at least not in Cleveland.
Ted Hart, News Channel 5.
After all of this, Fred Hamed says one of the beautiful things about Americans is their willingness to learn and listen. Over the past year, the Islamic Center in Parma has had an unprecedented number of visitors, people hoping to better understand the Islamic religion and the Arab culture.
The Akron Fire Department paused for a somber ceremony to remember the people killed last September 11th. News Channel 5's Jonathan Costin joins us from the Akron Beacon Journal with more. Jonathan?
I believe for generations we'll talk about how some 3,000 people died a year ago on this date, and 400 of those folks were in New York and they were part of emergency crews. You have to remember, when we run out of safety and out into danger and out of danger, police and fire and paramedics run into the danger. So today in Akron, Summit County clergymen, police, and fire crews took a moment to remember those who sacrificed their lives. They rang bells, lowered the flag to half-staff, and we all listened to a bagpiping musician play Amazing Grace. One minister reminded all of us that life is a gift. We can honor those who died by embracing life.
After this ceremony, go home and hug your spouse or your kids. Call an old friend or a distant relative. Tell somebody that you love them. The tragedy for Todd Beamer and over 3,000 other Americans is that they will never hug their loved ones again. They will never celebrate another Christmas or birthday.
The pastor added, it is up to us to honor those who died by living our lives with grace and with dignity. Back to you, folks.
I think his words are something that we've all really kept more in mind in the past year. Jonathan, thank you. Joe?
Well, it has certainly been difficult enough for adults to cope with 9/11, but what about the children? News Channel 5 anchor Tanya Strong has a very special look at one way in which some local school kids are helping to lift up others on the anniversary of this tragedy.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. The pictures that decorate Hillcrest Hospital depicting the message of America the Beautiful were created by children in kindergarten at Moreland Hills Elementary.
It unites people together and makes them feel happy. I like the colors. It makes me feel good.
Teacher Sally Roman says given the age of the students, she wanted to find an appropriate way in which young children could express their feelings.
Understand not so much about what happened on the 11th, but the significance of living in America. And we frequently ask young kids to do ritual kinds of patriotic things, saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, singing songs like America the Beautiful. And 5-year-olds really don't necessarily understand the words that they're saying.
So the children express themselves individually while learning to work together. Part of the project included having them paint their favorite storybook characters. That prepared them for the 9/11 display, which holds so much meaning to those who walk these halls. The school already had an ongoing project with Hillcrest, thanks to Eileen Roth, who was working with the hospital on a plan to provide artwork.
I'm so moved because people are stopped in their tracks just looking at it. And that happens with this artwork. People transcend.
Sometimes we glean wisdom from the innocence of children. I asked what their favorite pictures here of America mean to them.
The reason I like it is because it stands for all the 50 states. I like the Statue of Liberty. God shed his grace on thee.
And crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
It's just unbelievable, and when I look at it, it makes me want to cry. Again, you can see this exhibit at Hillcrest Hospital in Mayfield Heights. I should also point out it makes me feel very good, just like it does for the children. The children who created it under the direction of teachers Sally Roman and Sally Boyle are all now in first grade. They're so proud that their assignment is making other people stop and smile. Back to you. Beautiful expression.
Yes,
Thank you,
thanks,
Tanya. Well, you have seconds to give us a look at cooler weather.
Yeah, some good news. We have some refreshingly mild and cool air coming in for the overnight, for the evening. Not bad if you're headed out and about to the Tribe games. Take a look now. What's going on outside? 70 degrees. That's comfortable in Cleveland. Akron, Canton, 70. 72 in Ashtabula. 69 for Lorain, down to Worcester. We've got a few clouds overhead. Most of those are going to fade away through the overnight hours and will become mostly clear. Tribe game, 67 at game time, partly cloudy. Grab that sweater with overnight lows tonight. Believe it or not, low 50s and upper 40s. Close the windows. 5-day forecast coming up.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll be right back.
Look at you, baby. I love your smile. Tell me and come. Oh, you drive me wild.
A confident smile is a healthy smile. It helps you to be your very best. At Ohio Orthodontic Specialist in Northern Ohio, our doctors make getting braces easy with no down payment and affordable monthly payments. Just call 1-800-4-BRACES today.
Thank you for making me smile.
Are you overwhelmed by credit cards? Has divorce, illness, or unemployment left you buried in debt? Have you failed at credit counseling? I'm attorney Deborah Brewer, and we concentrate in bankruptcy law. If you're struggling to pay all your bills each month, call my free bankruptcy info line to find out how we can help you. Most people keep all their possessions, including houses and cars. Call my free bankruptcy info line or call toll-free to speak directly to an attorney about how you can get a fresh start.
Lose yourself with Kidam from Cirque du Soleil. An unforgettable journey of hope. An uplifting experience. Kidam from Cirque du Soleil. Buy your tickets today. Call 1-800-678-5440.
Military recruiters say there has not been a surge in enlistments in the last year, the way there was following the attack on Pearl Harbor. But as News Channel 5's Brad Harvey reports, many young men and women have chosen to take an active role in the war on terrorism.
They're called shippers, and for these new recruits, the one-year anniversary of 9/11 will find them in boot camp.
I want to be able to be a part of supporting Americans and protecting other Americans from never letting anything like that ever happen again, because this is my country and I grew up in it, and I don't ever want to lose it.
Looking at these young men and women puts a face on what's at stake when our troops are called to serve, especially now, something understood by the man responsible for recruiting many of them.
We were filling the ranks of the Marine Corps in a peacetime environment, and then, of course, 9/11 hit, and you say, hey, you know, these guys that we're talking to, you know, it's very possible that they're going to find themselves in a wartime situation. And
for some, the decision was harder.
It didn't make you want to join a little bit more, just you know, get over there and fight back and everything like that. But at the same time, it makes you a little bit more nervous because then you know more bigger events are coming up.
Just the process before shipping out is psychologically tough. This is one of the most difficult and important parts of the process. These shippers have been waiting in this waiting room seemingly forever. And at this point, they have just been called. So it's time for the oath. No turning back now.
I swear that I will support the bid, that I will support the
The shadow of 9/11 even hangs over the man delivering the oath.
That my son in the neighborhood had a friend that he played basketball, just your everyday kid games or whatnot with, that was on the plane that crashed into the Pentagon.
Many of these young sons and daughters will be responsible to see to it that it never happens again. Brad Harvey, News Channel 5.
Those new recruits will spend the next 6 months to a year training in their individual specialties. After that, they could be sent anywhere in the world.
It's a 9/11 survivor story you haven't heard. One local woman had not one but two brothers trapped in each of the Twin Towers.
But first, Northeast Ohio remembers the tragedy 1 year ago.
September 11th tore this country apart, but this country has a way of putting itself back together, and that's what we've done. Every year, we are concerned about people, and I hope that we memorialize September 11th by taking care of the people here at home.
Beautiful. I mean, look at this workmanship. Oh!
Excuse me?
Hey, neighbor, a nice patio room. The Dunlaps. Honey.
Be the most popular home on your block and save 10% off Champion Patio Rooms. Custom quality and craftsmanship. And 10% off our low factory direct prices. Call or visit our showroom today.
Sorry, folks, dinner time. Want us to set the table? We want you to leave. Oh. I think they're asleep.
When your fine area rugs need cleaning, call the cleaner with over 30 years experience, Arslanian Brothers. We pick up and deliver at your convenience right to your door. Arslanian Brothers cleans your fine orientals, domestics, and breweries with the most state-of-the-art rug cleaning equipment in the industry. And if you wish, we'll protect them with Scotchgard fabric protector. Trust the cleaner that picks up and delivers, and the heaviest thing you'll have to pick up is the phone. Call Arslanian Brothers at 271-6888.
Never clean your gutters again. Keeping your gutters clean is time-consuming and can be costly and dangerous. That's why Gutter Helmet was created. Its unique multi-patent design relies on surface tension, the same property that makes water cling when it spills down the side of a glass. Its exclusive nose-forward design keeps water flowing into gutters while leaves and debris fall away. Get off the ladder and out of the gutters and let Gutter Helmet help prevent major home damage. Call J.D. Turza and Associates. 25% off installation of 50 feet or more of Gutter Helmet. Limited time offer.
It seems almost everyone watched news reports of the attacks a year ago today unfolding on their TV screens, but others watched knowing they had family members trapped in the middle of it all.
Tonight, News Channel 5's Paul Kiska has the story of a Northeast Ohio woman whose brothers were in each of the Trade Center towers when the planes hit.
It seems like it's been going on forever. On the other hand, it just seems like I'm sitting here watching it for the first time.
Linda Wheeler was at work in Cleveland during the attacks. Her brothers, New Yorkers, Neil and Greg Lacoste, were also working inside the World Trade Center.
I was totally panicked and horrified.
With New York under attack, Linda raced home from Cleveland to Solon, but no calls from her brothers. Frantically, she called them, no answer.
And so I began to really think the worst.
Then, after 3 painful hours, a relative in New York City was able to relay that Greg was okay, but Linda had to hear Greg's voice herself to be sure.
I had already heard that there were people who had been calling on their cell phones as they were coming down the stairs saying that they were getting out, but in fact never made it out.
Then, finally, long into that painful afternoon, another relative called Linda to say she talked with Neil and confirmed both brothers, one in each tower, made it out just moments before each tower collapsed.
It was a feeling of relief that's just not explainable. It was almost as if now I could really focus on what was happening and be emotionally involved in the entire thing. Whereas before I was just numb. I was just deeply grateful, deeply grateful.
Her brother's plans today in New York are like Linda's in Solon, to be home, to be silent, to be grateful, and to be mindful of those who didn't make it out.
I'll just be thanking God all day and really remembering the people whose hearts are broken on that day with the reminders of everything that happened.
While there was great relief for Linda and her brothers, there's also great sadness. Her brother Neil lost 61 co-workers a year ago today.
What an incredible story. Now, after all of this, how has this changed this family forever?
Well, as you can imagine, as you know, brothers and sisters grow up, they get married, have children, careers, and move apart from each other, which is the case here. But they have vowed to spend every holiday together, which they have done since.
Strength from there. Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay. Well, the hijacking of United Flight 93 took place directly over Cleveland. Air traffic controllers at the FAA's Cleveland Center desperately tried to maintain control. The attack and the terrorists caught on tape. Chief Investigator Dwayne Pullman now with the last chilling moments of Flight 93.
Two planes had already slammed into the World Trade Center towers. Another plummets toward the Pentagon. Air traffic controllers at FAA's Cleveland Center frantically searched the skies for signs of yet another hijacking. Then, at just after 9:30, controllers hear this. Chilling sounds of a hijacking over downtown Cleveland on board United Flight 93. Controllers are stunned.
I mean, it just sent chills through your whole body. And after that, it became very surreal. Is this really happening?
Seconds later, that question is answered in no uncertain terms when a pilot opens the mic again as the attack continues.
People knew right away that, oh my God, it happened here too.
Flight 93, which had taken off from Newark at 8:41, now began to climb and make a U-turn directly over Cleveland Center at Oberlin. The busiest air traffic control center in the world could only watch as Flight 93 began to fly toward the nation's capital. As controllers steer other planes out of the way, one lone controller at Cleveland Center calmly and repeatedly calls out.
United 93, Cleveland, do you still hear the center? United 93, do you still hear Cleveland?
No answer. After several minutes of silence, a voice echoes in the control room. It's one of the terrorists on Flight 93. He's talking to the passengers. Did the terrorists trigger the wrong mic? Or did one of the pilots, still alive, make sure Cleveland Center could listen in?
My thoughts are that probably the pilot was trying to help us. They understand the system, but we'll never know that for sure.
As Flight 93 careens toward Washington, controllers watch as it drops to 4,000 feet. Then Flight 93 jerks left, then right.
At that point in time is when it appears that the heroes of Flight 93 took over, and there was a struggle.
Todd Beamer and the other passengers were attacking the attackers to regain control of the plane. Then Flight 93 fell off radar. Seconds later, another pilot confirms the crash.
Do you see any activity on your right side, smoke or anything like that?
Yeah, we do have a smoke fluff now at about, probably 2 o'clock.
Still an amazing story, even after all of this time. Still painful. It is important to note that had the heroes not rushed the cockpit, had there not been a crash, Flight 93, given its location in Pennsylvania and traveling at 500 miles per hour, was less than 20 minutes away from its intended target, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Reporting live at Hopkins International Airport, I'm Dwayne Pullman.
The country owes them a tremendous debt. We do. Dwayne, thanks.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Our coverage of 9/11 1 year later continues coming up live on 5.
But first, a look at the forecast plus news making local headlines.
Replacement windows half price.
No payments till 2010.
$200 for your old windows.
We're going to save you thousands of dollars.
At the Window Factory, you'll never hear those outrageous offers. What I will tell you is you can spend more or you can spend less, but you simply can't get a better quality window at a lower price. I guarantee it. So before you buy replacement windows, call the Window Factory. And remember, you can't get a better quality window at a lower price.
I could work hard all day,
every day, but I don't plow fields, harvest crops, or milk cows. I'm no farmhand. I'm the Farm Boss from Steel. Purchase the Farm Boss now and receive a Woodman carrying case free. The #1 selling brand chainsaw in the world. Are you ready for me? Are you ready for a Steel?
For nearly 40 years, Northeast Ohio families have come to Milano Monuments for personalized handcrafted memorials. Our showroom and manufacturing facility, located near Hopkins Airport, makes us easy to find. Our friendly, knowledgeable staff and on-site artists make us easy to work with. And the largest showroom and selection in Ohio makes us worth the drive. Memorials, mausoleums, statuary, religious items, and personal service. You'll find them at Milano Monuments. I'm Jim Milano. Thank you.
This afternoon in Cleveland, 70 degrees. Akron and Cleveland, but I think the guy to tell us a little bit more about that is in the forecast center.
Okay, Mark, take it away. Great cool-off.
Oh, yeah, big time cool-off. We're going to see some lows tonight we haven't seen in months. We're talking upper 40s for a lot of you inland away from the lake. Let's go right to it. Tower Cam 5, 70 degrees, looking down on Jacobs Field. Partly sunny skies. Game time temps in the upper 60s today. You might want to grab that sweater because you are going to chill down into the 50s before the end of the ball game. 70 degrees Hopkins into Pittsburgh, 81 degrees for Charleston, 75 Fort Wayne to Dayton, 73 Chicago, and Indy sitting right now at 77. Ragweed count, mold spore count, both a double whammy today in the severe category. So if you're sniffling and sneezing, you know why. It is the pollen and the mold spore. Look at all this high pressure over much of the nation right now. At least the eastern two-thirds enjoying fair weather high pressure, quite a bit of sunshine. Here is Hurricane Gustav. Now moving up the eastern coast. It is out away from the coastline, but still some heavy surf and some heavy rains for down east Maine into Massachusetts. But it is moving away very rapidly. Showers and storms for Florida, and off to our west in the Intermountain region, we have some monsoonal moisture coming up from the south into Colorado and New Mexico and Arizona. All right, here we go. Take a look at where the front is. Came through last night. Cool down is upon us. It's going to be a nice, mild next couple of days into the weekend as well. Things are looking great. We're going to try and keep you dry at least through Saturday and maybe into Sunday. Here's your forecast for the overnight hours. 52 for low, 40s inland with partly cloudy skies. Overnight, or tomorrow, I should say, 73. Very comfortable with lots of sunshine. And the 5-day forecast does show 77 Friday with sunshine. 82 Saturday, and showers and storms on Sunday.
Back down next week.
Back down. Yeah, Monday going to cool off again.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Our continuous coverage of 9/11 1 year later continues in a moment.
Now let's turn to News Channel 5's Lorna Barrett in the newsroom for a look at some local headlines today. Lorna.
Well, Joe and Lee, we start with an update on the West Nile virus. The mosquito-borne disease has now claimed the lives of 3 people in Ohio. The State Department of Health says a 68-year-old woman from Wayne County who died last month tested positive for the disease. That brings the total number of confirmed cases in the state to 3 and the number of probable cases to 93. Johnny Unitas, the Hall of Fame quarterback who broke nearly every passing NFL record and won 3 championships with the Baltimore Colts in an 18-year career, died Wednesday. He was 69. According to the Associated Press, Unitas died of a heart attack. And Friday will be the next time striking Maple Heights teachers will meet with the school board. That's the date set by a federal mediator. The school district's 235 teachers walked out of the classroom and onto the picket line a week ago. Schools have remained open for the 4,800 students. The teachers want a 6% pay increase each year for the next 3 years. The district offered a 2.5% increase in each of the next 2 years. Joe and Lee, back to you in the studio.
Okay, Lorna, thanks. We'll see you later. Still to come, the babies of 9/11, the special blessings for local parents on that calamitous day.
But first, Tribe baseman Travis Fryman remembers 9/11.
I really found myself valuing my time with my family much more and friends. And we also read some scripture that gave us comfort and reminding us that God is sovereign and He's in control. While we don't always understand why He permits things to happen, it gives me peace anyway to know that He is in control.
Power, pride, and determination. The building blocks of game day.
The same goes for the family of dependable, long-lasting Chevy trucks. Now you can drive the distance at your Chevy Network dealer. Register for a chance to pass, punt, and kick your way into a 2003 Chevy Avalanche during halftime of the next round home game. Stop in today and drive the distance, because at your Chevy Network dealer, game day happens every single day. Chevy, the official vehicle of the Cleveland Browns.
Landscaping your home? Buy direct from the grower and save 50% on trees and shrubs at Petiti Garden Center. Petiti's professional staff will even assist you in designing your landscape and offer expert planting advice.
Hello, I'm Angelo Petiti. We grow all our trees and shrubs right here in beautiful Madison, Ohio. Because of this, we can offer our trees and shrubs at half-off retail prices every day.
Fresh ideas grow right here, from our soil to yours at Petiti's Garden Center.
Being the biggest isn't why we're the best. It's our commitment to the communities we call home and the customers we call our friends. That's what makes Ganley the #1 auto group in Northeast Ohio.
Ganley has it all. We make buying fun. Dynamite deals every day. Ganley #1.
Now you do have a friend in the business.
A day of solemn remembrance and grieving at New York's Ground Zero. Just before 5 o'clock this afternoon, President and Mrs. Bush laid a wreath there in the footprint of what once was the World Trade Center. The birth of a baby is certainly a milestone in anyone's life, and watching them grow over their first year is just remarkable. But the families you're about to meet are making quite a fuss over their little girls as they celebrate their first birthdays today.
Her being born in that day is historic.
Chad Clark sounds like any proud dad, but his baby girl is growing up in a world that was forever marked on the day she was born.
We were sitting there in amazement when she was born watching it. We didn't think it was real because it came into the TV instantly.
Kiana Clark delivered little Kalia minutes before the attacks, and as they were celebrating, life changed drastically.
We was trying to call out to let our family know, let our mother know that she was born. We couldn't get through the phone lines. Everything was all tied up. We couldn't leave the hospital. You know, a lot of people couldn't get up there to come see her.
I was thanking God that she came out healthy. And on the other hand, I was sad, very sad, nervous.
Suchera Blumovicic was due with her fourth child at the end of September, but when her oldest son called from his military base in Alaska to tell her about the attacks,
I reached for the remote control, and I told my son to reach for it, and then the water just broke, and I said, "Oh honey, I can't talk to you, I can't watch the TV or whatever because your sister is coming."
And that afternoon, Sabrina arrived. But Suchera couldn't focus on the excitement of her new daughter. Her heart ached for her son's safety.
After I had the baby, I called him, and he said, "Everything's fine, you know, and I don't think I'm going nowhere yet. You know, I don't think they will send me anywhere right now."
But every day she worries he'll get the call to serve his country, the country they chose as their home nearly 30 years ago after a move from Thailand. Some Thai customs still hold meaning to her. Pieces of white yarn wrapped around flowers have special significance.
And then everybody pick one up and then tie it on her wrist and give her blessing for the rest of her life.
Blessings. That's exactly what many think babies born on 9/11 really are, as thousands lost their lives that day, and our country felt defeated somehow. But the heartbeat continued, even if it was with the smallest of beats.
I think she's just another gift that God gave us to help us overcome the bad things that happened on September 11th.
The babies were born at McDonald Women's Hospital, at university hospitals. And by the way, Suchera's son is still in the States. He's now stationed in Louisiana. Joe?
Our partners at Newsnet5.com have come up with a special interactive page commemorating the September 11th anniversary. Let's take a look at it right now. If you want an in-depth perspective on this somber anniversary, simply log on to Newsnet5.com for a complete victims database. You can scroll down here to get timelines on this entire situation. You can also take a site tour. Also, you can look into what the key figures have done over the past year, and even you can take a memorial virtual tour and light a virtual candle in honor of the victims of 9/11. All of this can be found on Newsnet5.com. The timeline, again, is very, very complete. We can also look at any of the memorial sites at the Pentagon, Ground Zero, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, located right here on the site tours of this great website, this great tribute on this somber memorial. Lee, let's get back to you.
Joe. The terrorist attacks are now a sad chapter and turning point in our country's history, but they are also part of lessons now being learned by our future leaders. News Channel 5's Tracy Carla shows us how life on college campuses has changed since 9/11.
These are the images that will forever be etched in our minds, images that started a new chapter in our history.
I would say just like anyone else here in America, the effects of September 11th still, I still picture them in my mind. I still remember where I was at the time.
What happened September 11th changed Americans. We've become more patriotic, more united, and more aware.
Life here has changed too since September 11th. What's being taught on college campuses across Northeast Ohio is a direct result of the events that unfolded on 9/11.
In fact, Cleveland State University has added 7 new classes. They range from Arabic to Islam culture and even a new class for nursing students.
Developed a section dealing with cultural responses to delivering health care to Muslim communities.
Roger Gouvet teaches a class called Focus of Terrorism.
It's been my field for a long time. But for students, I think a lot of them were alerted to the problems of terrorism from 9/11, have developed an interest in it since then.
I took this class to have a better general understanding of what terrorism is and what provokes terrorist acts against the United States or against any other population in the world.
At Baldwin-Wallace, political science professor Tom Sutton came up with the idea for a terrorism class the morning of 9/11, and
within 2 days of the class hitting the course book, we had it filled with 35 students. And the response I saw was that students really had no idea what terrorism was about.
At John Carroll, Richard Hendrickson and Phil Metris were part of a team approach to the subject last semester.
People from across the campus in different departments talk about the different aspects of the issue, from the national defense questions to the media.
Our duty as educators was to enable them to see the events from various perspectives.
A life lesson learned on college campuses across Northeast Ohio. Tracy Carlos, News Channel 5.
Thanks for watching Joe and me on this special edition of Live on 5. Our 90 minutes of local news continues now with News Channel 5 at 6. And we say good evening to you, everyone. I'm Tanya Strong. Joe Paganakis and I will have coverage from Cleveland of all the day's events to remember the victims of September 11th. Let's take it here to Ted.
Hi, Tanya. This is Ted Henry in New York City at Ground Zero. President Bush laid the wreath at the site at Ground Zero just about an hour and 5 minutes ago, as we knew he would. He's going to be leaving and going over to Ellis Island for the second big part of his stay in New York City for his address to the nation and to the world, really, coming up at 9 o'clock tonight. Those are the two big official parts of the commemoration of 9/11 today here in New York City. On the quieter side, a very impressive moment this morning at exactly 8:46. It was quite awe-inspiring, and here it is. The scenes here at Ground Zero this morning, extraordinary. Friends, relatives gathering here from all over the world. And leading up to the symbolic peak moment, bagpipes playing until precisely 8:46, the time of the first attack. And then a moment of silence, beginning here and rippling across America. For me, to experience the power of mere silence at a moment like this, unforgettable. And then the rest of the program.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Michael P. McDonald. John McDonald Jr.
I must tell you that I've run into many interesting people here at Ground Zero today, but really few more interesting than the friends of a young married couple from Rhode Island. There are 107 friends and relatives here of Lynn and John Nisani of Rhode Island, both 25, both killed here last year on United Flight 175.
They were a great young couple. Bill wanted to touch on.
They were soulmates. And because they were that way, that's why all the chemistry, all the people here.
And from Ohio at Ground Zero this week, Ellen Pretorius of Dover and Mike Kolick of Akron, both Flyers, both shattered by this.
I felt like I had to come here and pay my respects.
And Abdur Fukai from Al Jazeera, the leading Arab news network, our media neighbor here. How big is the anniversary of 9/11 here?
I can tell you that for us at Al Jazeera, it's a very big event.
And Tanya, how's this for a sizable coincidence? That same correspondent from Al Jazeera, from Bahrain, is engaged to a young woman from Orrville, Ohio, in our viewing area. His future mother-in-law called him this morning to tell him via Bahrain and New York from Orrville that she saw him appear on our news program yesterday when I mentioned him here on News Channel 5 at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Coming up tonight at 11 o'clock, I witnessed the moment of silence this morning with two women from North Ridgeville, and I'll share their perspective on it coming up later tonight at 11 o'clock, Tanya.
All right, thank you so much, Ted.
Well, the nation's airports were, of course, a big concern for security in the days following September 11th. The number of people flying over the last year has dropped off significantly. Today, more than 3,000 flights were canceled because of a lack of passengers wanting to travel by air. News Channel 5's Corrine Winter joins us now live from Hopkins International Airport. Corrine, is it like a ghost town down there this evening?
It sure is. Wait till you see what's behind me. A lot of really slim lines at ticket counters like this one all throughout Cleveland Hopkins Airport. Airport officials say they're not surprised and expect flights to pick back up tomorrow. But for today, September 11th, passenger load is down tremendously. What's at an all-time high? Security level. The airport commissioner says they've beefed up manpower, made a lot of security advancements, and they've had a year to prepare for today. So far, smooth sailing. Still, the events of last year are on everyone's mind.
I still feel the sorrow. My cousin was working in World Trade Center that day. He was lucky that he was not there. He was just delayed by 10 minutes. That's why he was saved. I remember last year this time I was very concerned because I could not make a call and I was not sure how he is doing.
And traveling out today, any concerns?
Actually not, because I'm pretty sure that systems are in place.
And earlier today, airport officials held a ceremony, a memorial, to honor what happened a year ago. They say to help employees as well as those traveling, help them make it throughout the day. Back to you.
All right, Corrine Winter live from the airport. Thanks, Corrine. Tanya?
As the nation remained on the highest possible alert today, a scare in Columbus. The State Highway Patrol evacuated the state office tower today after a man inside the building said he was installing a bomb. About 4,000 people work there. Bomb-sniffing dogs detected substances used to make mini explosives in a van parked at the building's loading dock. A search of the building, however, found nothing. Police do have one suspect in custody.
Security is also very tight today.
There have been many local ceremonies to commemorate the anniversary of the attacks. News Channel 5's Brad Harvey takes us to Lakeview Cemetery, where it was a time of remembrance and appreciation.
How different from last year. A moment of silence this morning, rustling leaves at the same time we were waking to the sounds of horror last year. Then, to the cadence of a bagpipe corps, a procession of police, fire, and EMS from across the region. But this day is about more than remembrance. It's about appreciation for those thousands of men and women all over the greater Cleveland area that risk their lives every day to keep us safe. Many people showed up just to say that.
We just take that for granted, and just how special the firemen and the police and the safety forces and the armed forces are to us. I have such a deep respect for them.
And that's just what so many needed to hear.
And there's people that'll walk up to you out of nowhere and thank you for doing your job, and people write us some nice letters, and it's rewarding. It feels good.
It seems the least anyone could do, considering the sacrifices they make, sometimes even the ultimate sacrifice. Brad Harvey, News Channel 5.
It was also a strong show of public unity. The mayors of Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, and East Cleveland joined together to read a poem.
Well, as I said earlier, security is also very tight today at the crash site of United Flight 93. That's in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. News Channel 5's Adam Shapiro is there live for us tonight. Adam, the president stopped by there today on his way to New York. That must have been an extra special moment for the families of the victims on board that flight.
It was an extra special moment, Joan. You know, the families of the victims of that Flight 93 will tell you that Shanksville is a sleepy town which wraps its arms around you and then gives you a big embrace. Today, all of those relatives got a huge hug from the nation's commander-in-chief. This was the president's first trip to the Pennsylvania field where Flight 93 crashed, killing the 40 innocent men and women on board. And these are their relatives who gathered here to pay tribute to their lost loved ones.
Honor Elizabeth Wainio.
They will tell you adversity does not build character, adversity reveals character. And that's what they honored today.
In the air, a wave of courage made its way from the cockpit to the rear of the aircraft and back again, with all persevering to the end.
If God brought you to it, God will get you through it.
Personal pain mixed with patriotism a year later. And today, there was an abundance of both.
We smile at memories of the lives lived to the fullest. We rage over lives extinguished so cruelly and so callously.
Family members of Flight 93's innocent victims say this was neither a day to say goodbye nor a day to look back. It's a day, thanks to the sacrifice of their relatives, to look forward.
Their legacy gives us the hope to know that we do have hope for tomorrow.
Now, we all have that image, the memory of the families of the victims of Flight 93 crying at the loss of their loved ones. And now you can add another memory to that, the smiles as they got to meet the president and shake his hand and take pictures with First Lady Laura Bush. In Shanksville, Adam Shapiro, back to you, guys in Cleveland.
All right, thanks a lot, Adam. Big question tonight. Is Cleveland ready to respond to a major terror threat? News Channel 5 investigator Jody Brooks takes a look.
Emergency preparedness, protecting people on the streets, people working in city buildings, people driving through downtown. How safe are we?
Well, a lot of this was brought into everybody's living room last September 11th. We've been working on this for a long period of time.
But things have changed. Assistant Fire Chief Tim O'Toole reassigned to the Department of Public Safety as Director of Emergency Management, the city's point man, working with all local agencies. New evacuation plans for Cleveland's workforce downtown to be tested this October. Stadium evacuation plans to be tested later this month. Public safety a concern. So is public health. The city and county health departments are certainly involved, working on a mass immunization plan. The ultimate goal to immunize the entire county within a 4-day period. Emergency response refined and ready to work with 40 hospitals in a 5-county area, all coordinated through the Center for Health Affairs.
Hospitals throughout, not just the 5 counties, but throughout the state, have begun to develop those kinds of agreements so that when resources are needed in one hospital that are in another hospital in another part of town, that they can be immediately transferred to that particular facility.
And when that happens, the Red Cross has enhanced its plan for action.
We would have people within local hospitals that would know who was being taken there. And we would have a hotline at the Red Cross where people could call and say, I can't find my mother.
Plans in place for the Cleveland area, but one of the biggest threats
is losing that focus, that momentum, that drive that we've acquired towards being more prepared.
We talked about the evacuation plan for the workforce of downtown Cleveland. That will be tested next month. And this month, later in the month, the test for the stadiums. That will involve local authorities, state authorities, as well as federal authorities, the FBI, the U.S. Department of Justice. Joe, this is going to be a major, major production.
But it'll definitely be worth it. We have to get this down. That's for sure. Thanks a lot, Jody.
Thousands of hours of hard work and dedication went into rebuilding the Pentagon after one of the terrorist hijacked planes slammed into it. And today, Hundreds of people, including the president, came to the Pentagon to remember the 125 inside that building and the 77 on the plane who died in the attack. Mary Beth Marston was there for this morning's memorial. And Mary Beth, I imagine that pride and patriotism did help many people cope with the grief they were feeling.
Oh, yeah, I think it's been helping them really throughout the past year. Tanya, take a look at the Pentagon behind me. It's really an amazing sight. To look at it right now, you would never know it was the scene of such devastation just a year ago. And that made a powerful statement to the thousands of people who came here this morning. But they really came here to remember their loved ones lost, and to remember one of the moments when our country changed forever. At 9:37 a.m., silence, except for the sound of a plane flying overhead and the flags in the wind. And then thousands of people listened as President Bush remembered the heroes.
Within minutes, brave men and women were rescuing their comrades. Within hours, in this building, the planning began for a military response.
My biggest hope is that people don't let just things like this turn into a one-year ceremony or a 5-year anniversary, things of that nature, that they continue to remember every day.
School children who lost a teacher on Flight 77, Sarah Clark of Columbia, recited the pledge, and a great sense of pride began to swell as the flag, first draped on the Pentagon after the attack, was unfurled again. 6-year-old Marie Mickley, who lost her mother, holding her flag tightly, was taking it all in.
It was good.
Yeah? How come?
I like the music.
I've been through a lot of ceremonies. Not to say that it's not a good ceremony. It was a good ceremony. Appreciate all the people that are doing it, but we kind of have our memorials every day.
And many families, having not visited the Pentagon in quite a while, were struck by how quickly it had been rebuilt. Construction workers were thanked today. They took the job very personally.
This last year has meant more to me than any job I've ever worked in my life. I mean, it's so personal.
Construction crews actually worked 24/7, and they did in less than a year what it took them originally almost 3 years to do. But you know, I talked with one woman today, who lost someone, and she said it's a shame they can fix a building, but they can't bring back her son. Tanya and Joe?
All right, thank you very much, Mary Beth. And we have to just keep our servicemen and servicemen and our thoughts and prayers as well on all of their families, because when we hear about high alert, of course, they are affected.
Absolutely, and they will be for some time to come. Well, stay with us. Meteorologist Mark Johnson is working on the 5-day forecast for you.
And a look at how the lives of some Indians and Browns players changed last September 11th. Up next, though, when news breaks, reporters step into action. We will give you an inside look at how our partners, the Akron Beacon-Journal, scramble to get the headlines to you on that fateful day.
Some of the heaviest smokers in Ohio are children. Of course, the smoke they inhale is from someone else's cigarette. Smoke a pack a day at home, your kid inhales 50 packs a year. Never forget, secondhand smoke is a first-rate killer.
Howdy, Champion. Ooh, nice windows. See if it's Champion. Look at this workmanship. Oh, energy efficient, built in their own factories. Champion installs them and even guarantees them. Yes, sir. You made a great choice. Who are you?
Visit Champion Showroom today and see, touch, and test our innovative replacement windows, which have earned the Good Housekeeping seal. Or call for your free in-home consultation.
This is the second floor. Ladder.
Hi, I'm Bob Serpentini. Today, September 11th, is a day to reflect on what makes America great. It's a time to remember all the heroic Americans who have lost their lives and to say a heartfelt thanks to all of those who keep us safe every day, from our armed forces at home and abroad, and to our local police and firemen who protect and serve us all, to tell our families that we love them, and most of all, to remind ourselves what a great country we live in and that we are more than ever American and proud of it.
The saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, was never truer than on September 11th, 2001.
The day after the terrorist attacks, those images were still so very present in our minds.
And a couple of our local newspapers captured the headlines like this. Take a look at the Plain Dealer. Terror hits home.
And the cover of the Akron Beacon Journal read, "Who did this?" Something we all wondered in the hours and the days following those attacks. Inside the Beacon Journal on September 11th, 1 year ago, it was business as usual early that morning when the attacks, then in an instant, everyone from reporters to press operators changed gears to gather and report the stories of our nation under attack. News Channel 5's Jonathan Costin takes us inside the Beacon Journal for a look at how it all came together.
On a typical day, the Beacon Journal newsroom quietly hums along, gathering news.
In the old days, typewriters were loud and they'd be clacking at typewriters and people shuffling papers around. Now it sounds like a library most days because everybody works on a computer.
But on this date last year, the quiet rhythm hit a frenetic beat. Bob Dyer just returned to work after taking a month's leave of absence to write a sports biography.
I came back in thinking I'd go through all this email and answer all these phone calls and be a very boring, routine day.
So he thought.
And as I walked in, the TV was on, and the First World Trade Tower was on flames, and I thought it was a movie. Honest to God, I was looking there thinking, oh, this looks like a new movie.
Dyer quickly realized he wasn't watching a movie. After a month of writing about baseball, Dyer had to change gears.
Looking back on what we first put out, I'm surprised we got as much right as we did. There was utter chaos, as you know.
They printed a special edition.
With a sense of panic and the unknown, our employees pulled together and came back in.
It's really trying to put it all together as far as for a reader, what we sometimes call first draft of history, what all was going on today. And at that point, it was still going on.
Yeah, we worked a couple extra shifts straight through and stuff to put out other editions and things like that.
But until I actually got up and went out to the car to drive home after 14 or 15 hours of this, it really didn't hit me what happened. I mean, I started thinking, oh my God, the World Trade Towers are not there anymore.
Jonathan Costin, News Channel 5.
Of course, news from Akron in the weeks after 9/11 made national headlines. Beacon Journal employees started a fire truck fund. They collected $1.4 million to buy New York a ladder truck, 2 ambulances, and 3 police SUVs.
Well, if you've been unable to take part in remembering the victims of 9/11 today, you can do so this evening by logging onto our website, newsnet5.com. Our homepage is dedicated to remembering this solemn day. You can even light your own virtual memorial candle. You'll also find very detailed sections looking back on September 11th, 2001, from timelines on what happened that fateful day to virtual tours you can take of all 3 memorial sites. That's on newsnet5.com.
And so to come on this special edition of News Channel 5 at 6, tomorrow's forecast.
Plus a look at some other news happening around Northeast Ohio today.
No one dresses a room like Wayside Furniture. From next-day delivery on acres of name brands to custom dreams worth waiting for, Wayside saves you more on the look you love. Wayside in Akron. Better furniture priced lower. Don't miss Wayside's Autumn Festival of savings in this week's paper for fantastic store-wide savings, like an extra 10% off all Broyhill. Wayside in Akron. Better furniture priced lower.
Buy this car, you'll lose 50 pounds.
Lies don't sell cars. Price sells cars. At Tri-County Kia, Kia start at $59.95. Tri-County has acres of Kias. Spectra, Sedona, Sportages, Optimas. Get America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty at Tri-County Kia. The only dealer with free oil and tires for life. Hundreds of Kias starting at $59.95 or just $99 per month at Tri-County Kia in North Ridgeville by the Turnpike overpass. Call 1-866-5995 Kia.
Lose yourself with Kidam from Cirque du Soleil. An unforgettable journey of hope. An uplifting experience. Kidam from Cirque du Soleil. Buy your tickets today. Call 1-800-678-5440.
Well, we will continue in just a moment with our coverage of 9/11.
But first, I want to turn it over to News Channel 5's Lorna Baird with a quick update on the local headlines making news tonight in Northeast Ohio. Lorna?
For Joe and Tanya, we start with an update on the West Nile virus. The mosquito-borne disease has now claimed the lives of 3 people in Ohio. The State Department of Health says a 68-year-old woman from Wayne County who died last month tested positive for the disease. That brings the total number of confirmed cases in the state to 3 and the number of probable cases to 93. Friday will be the next time striking Maple Heights teachers will meet with the school board. That's the date set by a federal mediator. The school district's 235 teachers walked out of the classroom and onto the picket line a week ago. Schools have remained open for the 4,800 students. The teachers want a 6% pay increase each year for the next 3 years. The district offered a 2.5% increase in each of the next 2 years. Meantime, Lakewood High School students are getting a lesson in discipline. They're learning who's in charge, and his name is Larry Caffro. He's the new principal of a school that teachers say had a discipline problem. Now, Caffro says he's not making any new rules, just enforcing the old ones. He's starting with the school's dress code.
I'll give you an example. The first day of school, I probably confiscated 12 hats myself, which is obviously a violation. The next day, I didn't see a hat anywhere in the building. So they knew what the expectation was, and they met it.
Teachers and some students say they've already seen a difference in the school in just the first few weeks under the new principal. Joe and Tanya, that's a look at news from around Northeast Ohio today. Back to you.
All right, Lorna, thanks a lot. Well, the events of last September 11th changed the lives of millions of Americans.
Young, old, rich, poor, even celebrities were affected. Up next, we will talk with a couple Cleveland sports players whose lives were forever changed on that day.
And meteorologist Mark Johnson has a complete look at what the weather will be like tomorrow. Your complete forecast coming your way next.
Secondhand smoke is even more harmful for children than it is for adults. It can cause all kinds of serious illnesses. Because the smoke from the tip of a cigarette is 20 times deadlier than what a smoker inhales. So lethal, it can even contribute to a baby's death. Secondhand smoke kills.
For nearly 40 years, Northeast Ohio families have come to Milano Monuments for personalized handcrafted memorials. Our showroom and manufacturing facility, located near Hopkins Airport, makes us easy to find. Our friendly, knowledgeable staff and on-site artists make us easy to work with. And the largest showroom and selection in Ohio makes us worth the drive. Memorials, mausoleums, statuary, religious items, and personal service. You'll find them at Milano Monuments. I'm Jim Milano. Thank you.
For 38 years, there's been only one name in RVs. The largest of new and pre-owned RVs in the Midwest. 60 acres, packed with the industry's top brands. Over 1,000 new and pre-owned RVs in stock and ready to go. The Midwest's largest RV service facility and body shop. 120 full-service bays with industry-certified technicians. Award-winning sales consultants and finance specialists. We've simply beat them all. That's why we've sold more RVs since 1990 than any other dealer. Tom Raper RVs in Richmond, Indiana. No big city overhead. Just proven every day. A strong drive will save you thousands. I-70 exit 149A, Richmond, Indiana.
Nearly everyone's life was touched on September 11th last year. Almost everything in our daily lives simply stopped, including sports. News Channel 5's John Chandler shows us how members of the Indians and the Browns were deeply affected on September 11th.
Dave Burba experienced an emotional juxtaposition on the morning of last September 11th. In the early hours of that day, the Tribe pitcher celebrated life. the birth of his son Dawson.
Everybody says, well, you know, that'll be a day you'll never forget. And I'll say, well, of course I'll never forget it. It's my son's birthday.
But as the day unfolded, Dave found himself grieving with the nation.
September 11th was a beautiful day for my wife and I, and that's the day we had a little boy. Unfortunately, it was also an ugly day for America.
In Berea, Browns defensive back Lewis Sanders felt that ugliness in the pit of his stomach. His father's office was on the 80th floor of Tower 1 at the World Trade Center.
When the cafeteria, I saw on the TV that the planes had hit, and I knew my father was up in it, so it was pretty hard for me that day. The whole time I was just thinking about just when I was young, just growing up, all the things he's done for me and stuff like that. I didn't lose that.
Miraculously, he did not. Lewis's father made it out alive, though Sanders' relief was still dulled by others' loss. And at that moment, playing was replaced with praying. In the days following September 11th, games were no longer a matter of life or death, not when compared to the real thing. But as America started to move forward, part of its healing took place here at the ballpark.
At least I felt privileged to play a small role in that process of healing, if you could call it that, I guess. And you certainly don't get back to normal.
I don't think anything's the same. Sports aren't the same.
That difference is not noticeable between the lines, but competition remains as fierce as it was last September 10th. Perhaps that's why stadiums made for such powerful vigils, or at least during a game, we could escape something that we will never forget.
Maybe as the years go by, hopefully it'll be my son's birthday and not something that I can relate to something bad that happened to our country.
Thanks, John. By the way, the Indians are at home tonight, about 45 minutes from now. There is a memorial ceremony scheduled at Jacobs Field before the first pitch with the Toronto Blue Jays.
In the meantime, Mark Johnson is joining us now to talk about the weather. Looking ahead, how are you?
Well, doing very well, and the weather is looking great, too. Some relief from all that heat. It was a beautiful, pleasant day with highs of 72 degrees for Cleveland after a morning start of 64. Akron's high 74, and they started out in Summit County at 62 degrees. Ragweed mold spore in the severe category, folks. Sorry, you're going to be sneezing. And the West Nile alert, yeah. This evening, it'll be low to moderate. The chances that you're going to get bitten by a mosquito, and tomorrow morning with the cooler temperatures, a low chance that you'll get bitten by any mosquitoes if you're outside. So a good evening and a very good morning to go outside and not have to worry about mosquitoes. Current temp 69, Cleveland, dew point 51, humidity 53%, a north wind at 13. It's been breezy all day. The wind should calm down a little as we go through the overnight. Still 70 Lorraine, Elyria, 71 for Ashtabula, Akron, Canton, 68, 71 Dover, New Philly. Look at all that high pressure here in control. It's going to hang around through the first half of the weekend, so get ready for it. Small craft advisory for boaters. North winds 10 to 20 knots, waves going 3 to 5 feet. Tribe game tonight. Game time temp in the upper 60s. Grab the sweater. Temps are going to fall into the 50s by the end of the ball game. 52 tonight, but 40s inland. Partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow 73 with mostly sunny skies. Pleasant day. And our 5-day forecast, not bad at all. Into the first half of the weekend, 77 Friday with sunshine, 82 Saturday, Sunday showers and storms.
Okay, looking good.
Thank you, Mark. We want to take you live back to Ground Zero in New York City now. 4 final words tonight from News Channel 5 anchor Ted Henry. Ted, we want to know your thoughts on how this first anniversary of September 11th was remembered.
Poignantly, Tanya, that's probably the best word I can describe. Over my shoulder, Ground Zero, still dozens of people, rescue workers, policemen, firefighters, as they have lesser ceremonies until midnight tonight here at Ground Zero. 3 quick stories about the wind. As you can tell, it's been more than a little gusty here for a long time. At the moment of silence at 8:46 today, the wind was so ferocious, it was swirling vapor and dust and debris. Those who were here last year said it was very reminiscent to them in part in a microcosm of what they experienced last year, and once again this year as well. Also, the wind has been knocking down tents around here. We're going to be back up this evening at 11 o'clock. It should be much, much calmer. President Bush addresses the nation and the world at 9. We'll have a recap coming up tonight at 11 o'clock. Ted Henry and Rich Kaiser from New York City. Good night.
Maria Rose Abad. Andrew Anthony Abadi.
September 11th, 2002.
Morris Christopher Gable.
Murder of innocence cannot be explained, only endured. And
they died in tragedy. They did not die in vain.
Todd Beamer.
1 year later, the nation remembers.
From ABC News, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. At ABC, we have spent the day marking the anniversary of the September attacks, and of course, so have so many people in the country. We are now in the studio from which we'll be broadcasting our special coverage tonight. This is, as you can see, a dramatic adaptation of the New York skyline and a representation of the lost towers. This was, of course, a day of commemoration. There were important events today at Ground Zero in downtown New York, where the trade towers themselves once stood and from which they're sorely missed. At the newly repaired Pentagon outside of Washington, and at that field in the beautiful countryside of Pennsylvania at Shanksville, where United Flight 93 went down. In the course of this broadcast, this edition of World News Tonight, we will visit all of those places. We'll also have the results tonight of an extraordinary test of international and national security. There are many ways to see this day. One is clearly through the perspective of the President, because he was at each location. And here's our White House correspondent, Terry Moran. Terry?
Peter, for Mr. Bush, this was a day when the duties of his office were ceremonial, emotional, and solemn.
Down the long, long ramp leading to Ground Zero, winds whipping up the dust in the pit, the President and the First Lady arrived to pay tribute to the thousands who died here. They laid a wreath, said a prayer, and then, surrounded by the families of the lost, they offered all the comfort they could. A hug here, a firm handshake, a quiet word. As evening came on, there seemed to be time for every family. The muted ceremony in Lower Manhattan capped a day of remembrance for the President. It began at 8:46, the moment a year ago when the first plane hit. From there, the Commander-in-Chief returned to the Pentagon, astonishingly rebuilt in just a year. The President and the Secretary of Defense watched as a worn and tattered flag was unfurled over the building, just as it had been 1 year ago over the smoldering rubble.
In a sense, we need on the battlefield. The terrorists wanted September 11th to be a day when hatred reigned. Instead, it was a day when we witnessed love beyond measure.
For Mr. Bush, the moment offered an opportunity to reaffirm a solemn vow to the comrades of those who died here.
At every turn of this war, we will always remember how it began and who fell first. The thousands who went to work, boarded a plane, or reported to their posts.
From the martial pomp and high ceremony of the Pentagon, the President traveled to the tranquility of the fields of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. There he paid tribute to the passengers of Flight 93. The families of the lost gathered around the President here. He lingered with them, signing autographs, posing for pictures for an hour. And as he left, a child ran to him, receiving a presidential hug, frightening for a moment, a day filled with tears. It turned out his brother wanted one too.
Tonight, the President will address the nation from Ellis Island with the Statue of Liberty over his shoulder. He will talk briefly, aides say, about what he will call the long year that has passed, a year of coming to terms with what he says is the difficult knowledge that the nation has enemies and that we are not invulnerable to their attacks. Peter?
Thank you, Terry. Terry Moran, our White House correspondent. So there's the day as seen from the President's perspective, and he made a huge difference at every place that he went. Each of those places was in its own way, so quite extraordinarily different. Here's ABC's Bob Brown.
From each of New York City's 5 boroughs early this morning, bagpipers began their processions toward Ground Zero. And along the way, New Yorkers joined them on the streets in these hours before sunrise. At 8:46, when the first plane struck the World Trade Center a year ago, there was a moment of silence, observed also by the President on the south lawn of the White House.
They were our neighbors, our husbands,
our children, our sisters, our brothers, and our wives.
New York's former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani began a reading of the names of all the victims, joined later by other readers.
Joseph Angelini, Jr.
Joseph Angelini, Sr. On a ramp called Hall Road, because of the debris that was carried out of this pit, mourners joined a procession to a circle of honor, where they placed roses in the memory of the victims. At 9:03, another pause, marking the moment when United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower of the Trade Center. Brittany Clark is an 11-year-old whose father died on the 96th floor of the Trade Center. She wrote a poem that made her feel, she said, as if her father was still speaking to her.
I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not think of me as gone. I am with you still in each new dawn.
John Francis Swain.
Christine M. Swearson.
Ryan David Sweeney.
After 2.5 hours, they were still reading the names, 2,801 in all.
They were so much more than just names.
At the Pentagon, where 189 people died, cabinet members and congressional and military leaders gathered on an enormous stage and within a crowd of several thousand, marking also on how quickly the shattered building has been rebuilt. In Shanksville, Pennsylvania, a bell tolled 40 times for those who died aboard United Airlines Flight 93, which crashed in a field after passengers struggled with the terrorists who had taken over the aircraft. The ceremony was attended by more than 500 relatives and friends of the victims.
We remember courageous Americans.
Pennsylvania Governor Mark Schweiker said it was here that freedom took its first stand, and the president visited the site later to speak privately with families. Thousands of people have come here during the last year to create their own memorial, built of dolls and flowers, flags and photographs. Like Americans everywhere today, they have improvised their ways of dealing with grief and preserving images and memories to overcome the images that changed everyone a year ago. Bob Brown, ABC News, New York.
Each of these ceremonies was in its own way very unique, and we had a reporter at each location. For Ground Zero now for a moment to get some impressions about the day from Don Daler. Don?
Peter, I think most of us were expecting this to be a somber and reflective ceremony. What we were not expecting was it to be quite as emotional as it was, almost mournful at times, as the family members made their way down the ramp to lay flowers in the circle, many times openly weeping, still obviously grieving a year later what had happened. And that sea, that river of family members that made their way down the ramp, I think was stunning. And for most of us watching, that was a very strong visual reminder of the enormity of the loss that occurred here and the thousands of families who were forever impacted by those events last year.
Precisely. Thanks very much, Don. The Circle of Honor, in fact, became almost a spontaneous. None of the officials thought people would go inside the Circle of Honor, and they did time and time again. By contrast, at the Pentagon, where ABC's John McCarthy has spent all of the day, John, I think a lot of us thought that it was very upbeat, uplifting, in a way that New York was not.
Definitely more upbeat than there, Peter. There was no reading of the names, the music and the speeches. All were trying to take this military family and move them ahead. There was definitely an effort on that. At the end of the ceremony, they'd handed out 10,000 small American flags to this huge audience. And it had a tremendous impact. It was almost like a celebration, if that is possible. There was a case of nerves here today, though, Peter. There was a lot of security around here, and they repeatedly made an announcement to this audience to make them aware that there was going to be jets flying over in honor of the dead at the end of this ceremony, almost as though they didn't want any of the people to be surprised when those jets came in and to have them misinterpret it as something other than what it was.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I would agree with you. It was, as you said, in some ways a celebration of the country's spirit and determination, very evident at the Pentagon. And then there was Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Tiny little place, 245 people, been left sort of off the map in many ways in the course of the last year. ABC's Dan Harris is there. And Dan, I think you were surprised today how many people showed up and their interaction with the president.
There were 500 plus family members here today, and here's some of the words they used to describe what they saw today. Moving, beautiful, great comfort, they called it. They were gratified, they say, by the turnout today. 5,000 people who came on a windy, chilly day. Gratified as well by the portrayal of their relatives by the speakers as citizen soldiers who fought back and therefore saved lives. And gratified perhaps most of all by all of the personal attention that they got from President Bush. Even people who do not support Bush's policies say they were gratified by the attention and the seemingly genuine compassion he showed here today. Peter?
Thanks, Dan, very much. Dan Harris in Shanksville. There were naturally today on the first anniversary, recollections of the first anniversary of Pearl Harbor. A year after the attack in Pearl Harbor, there were 1 million U.S. men in uniform. And on the first anniversary, the First Lady, Mrs. Roosevelt, wrote, there would be very little point in celebrating this as a holiday, but there is every reason to keep it in mind so that we are never unprepared again to defend the things in which we believe. In other words, learning from the past without being held hostage to it. Today, Americans have commemorated this day and these ideas in so many different ways. To bring in the rest of the country, ABC's Dean Reynolds.
No matter where you were in this country today or what you were doing, you just had to pause and think.
Good morning.
Americans gathered in large crowds or small, but all for the same reason.
A great loss. A lot of people lost families. The repercussions are still here. Sorry.
Please join me.
Just pause for the silence for the loss that we all incurred.
On this day, the silence lasted for what seemed like an especially long minute and was observed virtually everywhere, from shopping malls to ballparks. It was a silence pierced by the ringing of bells or the blasts of cannon fire in places like Montgomery, Alabama, or rifle reports in Springfield, Illinois.
This was a good way for me to feel as close as possible to the event.
Fighter jets crisscrossed the skies in aerial tribute from Idaho to Lake Michigan and beyond. They released balloons in Columbia, Missouri, bald eagles in St. Louis, and doves of peace in California. 3,000 crosses were positioned in a field in central Washington. 3,000 carnations were dropped in a pool in Houston. And firefighters' boots were placed near candles in Cincinnati. In a Chicago suburb, Muslim school children formed a human chain in sympathy. And a mosque in Los Angeles called this a special day to pray. All of this went on under the watchful eye of the country's security forces, doing what they do every day.
And the truth is that except for a brief commemorative pause in the morning, many people were determined to keep to their daily routines too. To them, that was the perfect gesture.
Remember, terrorists are cowards. And they think that we are going to be afraid. So what we need to do is face them, and we are going to win.
For a time today, the people of this country broke stride, but then got back to the business of being Americans. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Chicago.
And yes, of course, as Dean alludes, there was some anxiety in the country today. We all know that the government put the country in a higher state of alert yesterday for the first time since March. And to bring us that part of today, here's ABC's Martha Raddatz.
Early this morning, the Coast Guard stopped a foreign freighter bound for a New Jersey port after inspectors detected low-level radiation aboard the ship. Further tests are being conducted. In Baltimore, 8 Middle Eastern men were taken into custody. Sources tell ABC News that police serving a warrant discovered fake IDs, photos of Times Square, Washington's Union Station, and website information on flight schools. In the air today, 2 scares. Over Houston, an air marshal thought he spotted a passenger with a folding knife. It was a folding comb, but F-16 fighters were called to escort the flight back to the airport. An airliner leaving Memphis was diverted to Fort Smith, Arkansas, after 4 men described as Middle Eastern-looking raised suspicions. The FBI first thought a hijacking might be in progress, but it was another false alarm.
Authorities say as long as the nation remains on high alert, no one is taking any chances with security. Martha Raddatz, ABC News, Washington.
The terrorists who attacked the country a year ago started everybody going by breaching airport security, and since then security has become something of an obsession for millions of Americans. ABC's Lisa Stark, who covers aviation for us, is at Denver International Airport tonight. Lisa, this was a day in which, quite frankly, there weren't that many flights and there weren't that many travelers.
Absolutely, Peter. U.S. Airlines cut 3,200 flights today. And at the airports throughout the country, travelers were down anywhere from 30 to 70%. In Denver, for example, this morning during the morning rush, what was typically the morning rush, there were simply no lines, no one at curbside check-in. So things were going smoothly at the airports from that standpoint. People today were flying for a number of reasons. Some said they had to fly for family reasons or business, but a number said they were flying to simply be defiant. One man said, "We cannot be afraid of terrorists."
And from an airline point of view, everybody expect back to business as normal tomorrow in the aviation business?
To be honest with you, they expect it to be slow for the next few days. It may not get back to normal till next week.
Okay, thanks very much, Betsy Stark. Lisa Stark. Now we want to turn to Betsy Stark. Betsy Stark covers the economy for us, and of course Wall Street was deeply affected a year ago, and it took a while today for Wall Street to get going again. ABC's Betsy Stark covers that for us. Betsy?
Well, Peter, many of the victims of 9/11 worked for financial companies that were located in the World Trade Center. So this was a day of grief and remembrance on Wall Street. Stock trading was beside the point. As one analyst put it to me today, our bodies were there, but our minds were elsewhere.
The world's biggest stock market got underway 2.5 hours late today, and the first order of business was a moment of silence, led by a balcony full of dignitaries. Minutes later, a plaque commemorating those who perished was unveiled outside the New York Stock Exchange.
The top of the plaque, ladies and gentlemen, says it all. Let freedom ring. God bless you. God bless America.
Today was first and foremost a day of mourning on Wall Street. No industry suffered greater casualties than financial services, which makes its home around Ground Zero. The investment bank Sandler O'Neill lost 40% of its workers. Today, it honored those 66 employees in this full-page ad. They were one of several banks and brokerages to memorialize their dead. Bond trading giant Cantor Fitzgerald held a private service in Central Park for the 658 employees it lost last September 11th. Jennifer Gardner's husband was one of them.
It's like moving through a fog today. It's quite difficult. I didn't think it was going to be this hard. I woke up this morning and as soon as 8:46 hit, it was like a ton of bricks.
Well, as expected, trading was light today. The Dow lost 21 points. The NASDAQ fell about 5 points. But the market pundits had little to say about it. Peter, as one observed, this was not a day for economic analysis.
Thank you very much, Betsy Stark and Lisa Stark in order. As we heard a few moments ago, a freighter registered to a company in Hong Kong was turned away from the port of Elizabeth, New Jersey this morning. Coast Guard inspectors detected a low level of radiation on board. This resonated with us tremendously because ABC's Brian Ross has just spent a long, very intense period of time investigating, good evening, Brian, whether U.S. officials can keep this kind of material out of the country, and you discovered they cannot.
That's right, Peter. We began our investigation by going through court files and seized documents to see how al-Qaeda terrorists had planned to smuggle dangerous radioactive material into the country. Then we followed the same path, using a legal, harmless version of the material to see if authorities could detect it or stop it.
Our secret journey started by rail in Austria on the 4th of July. On a rack in the cabin, this suitcase, holding 15 pounds of depleted uranium, which we had picked up at a scientific institute in Salzburg. The material, inside a steel pipe lined with lead, is not the dangerous, highly enriched uranium used in nuclear weapons. Scientific experts say it would give much the same signature to detection scanners now in use.
Perfect mock-up.
It replicates everything but the capability to explode.
But across 5 European countries, there was no inspection of the suitcase. All the way to Turkey, to Istanbul, considered the crossroads of the world's nuclear black market.
This is what they're looking for, or should be looking for, and this is what they absolutely have to stop.
And then, with surprising ease, we were able to pack our material inside an ornamental chest, crate it, and then place it in a shipping container alongside a cargo of vases and Turkish horse carts.
If it were a real weapon, that you had managed to get out of the Soviet inventory, some would fit in this container.
At 2 in the morning on July 29th, the container arrived at the port of New York on board the cargo ship Singapore Bay. At this point, not a single government official had checked to see what was inside the container.
A weapon could be armed and ready to fire.
So the ship could be the delivery device.
Well, the ship, I think, is one of the most dangerous delivery devices.
Our ship tied up at the Staten Island dock in New York, where U.S. Customs says it has a state-of-the-art system in place to detect even a small, low-level amount of radioactive material like ours.
If we can't tell exactly what's in that container by those screenings, we're going to get into the container and find out for ourselves.
Yet our container left the port without ever being opened by U.S. Customs. It had been targeted for special screening because it came from Istanbul, but still it sailed right through. And a few days after its arrival in the United States, from a place known for its connection to the nuclear black market, the container was on the back of a truck headed for New York City.
We ran it for radiation detection, and we also did a large-scale X-ray.
U.S. Customs Commissioner Robert Bonner said his inspectors correctly singled out the container and would have found anything truly dangerous.
Nothing appeared that would indicate that there was a potential for a nuclear device to be in the container. Or
A large piece of metal in the shipment of Turkish horse carts didn't stand out?
Look, I'm not going to get into it. We have the X-ray pictures. We look at it.